Are you dreaming of living along Florida's famous Emerald Coast with its white sandy beaches and vibrant communities and beautiful waters? It's no wonder that a lot of folks want to move here. In fact, the hardest part isn't deciding to live here, it's deciding where to live here. So today we're going to be taking a closer look at all of the Emerald Coast cities so that you can find your perfect match. My name is Andrew, or of course you can call me Mongo, your trusted real estate advisor here along the Emerald Coast. And whether it's a family-friendly city or nightlife that you're looking for, or somewhere in between, we've got the city for you here on the Emerald Coast. So let's go ahead and jump in and explore city by city so that you can find the place that you can call home. So let's begin with the place that I chose when I moved down here about 20 years ago, and that is Fort Walton Beach. And Fort Walton Beach, I am dubbing as affordable coastal living. When I first moved down here, the military moved me down. I was an enlisted member. I wasn't making a whole lot of money, so I needed a fairly affordable city to live in without it being too far away. And there's a couple of options along the Emerald Coast, but Fort Walton is where I ultimately ended up staying. So the overall vibe here in Fort Walton Beach is casual, family-oriented, and very, very military-friendly. With it being located between Eglin Air Force Base and Hurlburt Field, literally smack dab in the middle of it, it is the city that divides those two from becoming one major air base. Fort Walton Beach offers a lot for both of those parties. So if you're looking for a quick 10-minute drive into the office because you're stationed at one of these areas or you're going to be working on one of these two bases, then Fort Walton is definitely a great option for you. And in the grand scheme of things, although it's not the cheapest to live in the area, it is definitely more affordable than most of our other cities. So when we're looking at cost of living for the entirety of this video, I'm going to be giving you guys the median house sale price as of November of 2024. So obviously these will change here and there, and they're not always going to show you the yearly average, but I did want to give you guys a good idea on that. Other than that, cost of living is going to be pretty much the same everywhere you go. Gas prices and things like that will vary just a little tiny bit. I mean pennies and pennies between different cities. So overall, just about everything else is the same, from utilities, taxes, insurance. Some of those will waver a little bit, but not enough to make a massive decision. Where the biggest cost of living difference will be is in housing. All right, now that we got that little housekeeping out of the way, the median house price in Fort Walton Beach is $373,000. And of course, this is using sold properties only. So if you do go online and check out prices, you may see that the listed price is just a little bit higher. But good news for anybody buying in this market, the power is in your hands. So, we can get a little bit off that price for you. Now, there are two highlights that I want to make about Fort Walton Beach. I've already mentioned one of them, and that is the proximity to the two bases. And the second thing on my list to highlight is the great schools. Now, they're not the best schools in our area. We definitely have other cities that kind of take it up just a little bit of a notch, but our entire Emerald Coast in general has pretty strong schools, and Fort Walton Beach is no different. Now, for each one of these areas, I went back and talked to some of my past clients or some of the team's past clients to basically ask them what they thought about it. So I'm going to be reading you on each one of these sections what they said about it so that you're getting actual information from somebody just like you that went from wherever you're at and moved down here. So for Fort Walton Beach, I'm going to cheat and have to look down at my notes on this. One of the families that we worked with, they moved here and they said they wanted to stay close to base, and they were thrilled to find a neighborhood where there were kids biking everywhere and kids outside playing and things like that. And the big thing I wanted to highlight here was they said it was a true throwback to the good old days, which I thought was pretty cool. Now, Fort Walton's a mixed bag of things, so not every neighborhood's going to feel like this, but the one neighborhood that they chose is like that. And so that's very cool. I really like that little analysis from them on Fort Walton Beach. All right, now we're going to take a complete turn and go over into Destin. Destin is a name everybody knows, and what I am dubbing Destin as the heartbeat of the Emerald Coast. The vibe here is completely different than Fort Walton Beach, even though they're only about a 10-minute drive apart. The vibe here in Destin is bustling, very tourist-centric, and it's got kind of a luxurious edge. Not completely luxury, but it's in the realm of. You start kind of noticing a little bit of that luxurious feel when you're living here in Destin. Now, the pricing in Destin is going to reflect the fact that that's where all the stuff is. It's where all the great restaurants are. Well, not all of the great restaurants, but it is a very, very packed area of restaurants and things to do and activities and festivals. And then, of course, it's centrally located here on the Emerald Coast. So you're 10 minutes to either side, 10 minutes to Fort Walton, 10 minutes to Miramar, which we'll talk about here in a minute. And then, of course, 10 minutes to Niceville above. We'll also talk about that. But the property pricing is a little bit higher. This is going to include houses, townhomes, and even condos. Now, we're going to have a very wide range on this, but the median home sale as of last month was $645,000. Now, does that mean you can't find something for $350,000? No, you can absolutely find something for $350,000, but just remember just that median. So it's going to range anywhere from about $300,000 on the low end. You can actually get some condos even cheaper than that. And it's going to scale all the way up to 10, 12, 15 million, depending on what's on the market at that time. Now, the three big highlights for Destin is fishing. Hence why it's called the world's luckiest fishing village. Vibrant nightlife and upscale living. At the end of the day, Destin is a phenomenal place to live, with good reason, obviously. That's why so many people flock here to vacation. But with that comes some inherent downfalls. Longer lines at some of your favorite restaurants and places, and of course the traffic. Now, once you know the Destin traffic flow, it's pretty easy to get around because Destin is one of the few cities here that you can actually kind of dodge a good portion of that traffic, but it's still something to consider. When talking with one of my clients turned buddies that lived in Destin, his big thing was, I love being able to walk across the street and hit the harbor walk anytime I want. He goes, everything is so close. I can get an Uber if I want, or it's just a quick 10-minute jaunt. Where he happens to live is in West Destin. So it's kind of in that area right there by the harbor walk, which has so many things. He's like, I love on a Saturday going down there, renting a jet ski, popping over to Crab Island for a couple of hours, coming back, and then walking right back into my house. And it doesn't feel like a very large undertaking. He's like, it can happen quick. If I got a few hours that I kind of want to go, awesome. I don't need to go spend the entire day because I'm coming from a different city. And mind you, this individual, he's lived here in Destin. He's also lived on Okaloosa Island and in Fort Walton, so he does know the difference. All right, before we get into our next one, I do want to let you guys know I'm not doing these in any particular order. In fact, I completely randomized them on purpose, mainly just to kind of make it more fun for me instead of starting on one side and moving our way around. So if there's a particular city that you like, don't worry. I probably didn't skip it yet. I'm going to be getting to most of the main cities. There's a couple of smaller ones that I'm not going to touch. So with that, we're going to head east to Miramar Beach / Sandestin. So Miramar Beach kind of has Sandestin Resort in it as well. And that is the next area we are going to cover. Now, I'm going to call this luxury living with a vacation vibe. It feels not quite as busy and hectic as Destin, but definitely not near as homey as Fort Walton Beach or Niceville would. The overall vibe here in Miramar Beach and Sandestin is upscale and vibrant with all of the amenities of a standard resort. And the cool thing about that is those are year-round. So even when the tourists flock away, you've still got access to all of those resort-style amenities, especially if you're actually on one of the main resorts that are out there. What's so cool about these resorts is they're completely encompassed with everything that you need, basically everything but grocery shopping. And even then, they might even have a little bit of that. You're just not going to find your big Whole Foods and Publix and things like that within those communities generally. And as far as cost of living / housing, it's a little bit higher than Destin, but not so much. The median price out here was $710,000. And of course, the housing prices are going to change dramatically, whether you're doing a condo or you're in a gated community or any other number of things. So you can definitely go lower, you can definitely go higher. Now, the three big highlights I have for Miramar are great ones, okay? So number one, world-class golf courses. I love golfing. I say that I loved golfing. I have not been golfing in about a year. The golf courses out there in Miramar and Sandestin are stinking gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. So that's number one. Then, of course, you've got all the upscale shopping at the Silver Sands outlets. It's actually a very main hub. There's got to be over 100 name brand stores there in this one little area. So if you're looking for upscale shopping, that's a great place to go. I still go down there for certain brands that I cannot find in Fort Walton or Destin. So I actually trek up there a couple of times a year. It's always a great time. And it's big enough. The footprint is big enough, too, that you're not generally waiting in line for too long. Although I guess that would also kind of depend on the time of year that you go. I don't generally go to those places during tourist season or during Christmas season or anything like that. So maybe the lines get a little bit worse. And then the last highlight for Miramar and Sandestin is they've got some of the best waterfront dining in all of the Emerald Coast. You can find phenomenal, like just absolutely amazing seafood and just beachfront dining in general in every single city that has a beach. Obviously, Crestview and Niceville do not, although you still have great waterfront restaurants in Niceville. You're just not going to have them in Crestview, let's say. But here in Miramar and Sandestin, they have some of the best along the Emerald Coast. There are several out there that are just absolutely amazing. All right, now I'm going to take a look at my notes here to go over the story from the family that I had that lived there in Sandestin Resort. So one of these families that we worked with, they decided they wanted to live in Sandestin because they wanted the vacation feel while still kind of maintaining their day-to-day life. They said between the beach access, the pools and the golf carts to get around, they feel like every single day is like their own little mini vacation, even when it's just like a standard school day on a Tuesday. So I thought that was pretty cool and kind of sums up exactly what Miramar and Sandestin feels like. So if you're looking for a vacation every day, or at least like little hints of it, well, this is a great spot for you. If you guys are a new viewer on this channel, thank you. If you're a returning viewer, also thank you. But if you have not subscribed, definitely hit that subscribe button. We do videos every single week on Tuesday at 4 p.m. Central Time is when it drops. So definitely hit that subscribe button, help us out a little bit, and get the information that you're looking for. Now, let's move on to Navarre, the quiet retreat. I think that little tagline, the quiet retreat, hits Navarre to a T, but I don't think it's always going to be like that, and I'll talk about that here in a second. But the overall vibe here is peaceful, family-friendly, and close to nature. The housing prices here in Navarre are a little bit more affordable than the two cities we were just talking about, with the median sale price being at $415,000. The cool thing with this is that median price is a little bit higher than Fort Walton's, which I think was $373 if I remember correctly, $372. But you're getting a little bit more bang for your buck in Navarre. You're getting a slightly larger house, a slightly larger plot of land. So that's something that we can't really just, ignore. That's definitely a part of it. So even though it's a little bit more expensive, it might suit more of the family atmosphere out there than Fort Walton does, although Fort Walton's perfectly great for families too. It's just a little bit different in the types of houses that you're going to get for the same price. Now, the three key highlights here in Navarre is kayaking, fishing, of course, and then lastly, the beautiful, beautiful beaches without all the crowds. That right there is probably the number one highlight of Navarre in general. You go out to Navarre Beach, you've got several options. You can go right, and in fact, you can keep driving forever and find a beach that nobody is on, or there's only one or two cars, and there's not anybody for 200 yards. Or you can go to the main part of the beach, right by the pier, maybe even head left as soon as you go onto the island, and there's a bunch of parking out there, and it'll be a little bit more crowded there. Crowded's not even the right word. There'll be a few more people there, but even at its peak, it really doesn't get all that crowded. I mean, it does, in comparison to what we're used to, but you're still going to have some stretch out room even during peak tourist seasons. And whenever the tourists aren't there, which Navarre is not heavy into tourists like Destin and Miramar and some of the other areas we're going to talk about, it still gets a little bit, but even then, the beaches are still pretty clear. It's actually one of my go-tos now. I'm always kind of in between Fort Walton. There's two beach accesses I like in Fort Walton, and then, of course, Navarre is always a good option. So for the clients that we reached out to on this, actually bought a sound front neighborhood. So the Sound is a body of water between the island, the barrier island, and the mainland, Florida, right? So a little bit different of water than the Gulf, but not that much different. It's still salty, it's still brackish, but it's a little bit less. So anyway, point of this is they bought a house right there on the water, and they said their favorite part about Navarre is every single morning sipping their coffee and on a good chunk of the days getting to see dolphins just out there playing, and then of course some of the boats and even the barges that go by. Funny thing was, whenever they were shopping, I was originally telling them about the barges. That's like my favorite part about being on the Sound in general, is these huge barges. These they've got all these shipping containers and stuff on it. It's magnificent to see just strolling through there, right? And they were just like, yeah, that doesn't entice me at all. The second they saw one, they texted me and they were like, we just saw one of the barges. That thing is huge. I can't believe it. That was really cool to see. I still like the dolphins more, but the barge was pretty cool. So definitely kind of a little bit of a different outlook than you would think, but I think the barges are definitely pretty cool. If you'd like more dedicated information on the Navarre Gulf Breeze area, which we'll talk about Gulf Breeze here in a second, we actually have a dedicated YouTube channel just for that Destin runs. It is Life in Navarre, Florida, so you can check that out. We do have 2 sister channels. I'll talk about the other one here in just a moment. All right, let's move on to Niceville, Emerald Coast's hidden gem. Niceville is exactly what its name sounds like. It is a nice place to live, and it's got a lot of really big bonuses to it. It's right off of Eglin Air Force Base. It's extremely family friendly. It's extremely welcoming. Like when you move in one of these neighborhoods, this is the kind of neighborhood that your neighbors still come by with cookies sometimes. Not everybody, not a lot, but like a few might. And the overall vibe and atmosphere is pretty good. So let's get into it. So the 3 best words I can come up with for the vibe in general is friendly, family focused, and suburban. Suburban was one I was kind of going back and forth on because it really kind of depends on what part of Niceville that you're in. But there are definitely sections of it and neighborhoods that feel very suburban, very cool. And then, of course, you've got, that, like I said, that quick access to Eglin Air Force Base. You are a little bit further from Hurlburt Field, though. And then, of course, if you're up at 7th Special Forces, up right on the south end of Crestview, Niceville is also a great place to live if you really want to focus on, schools and family friendly and things like that. But you're going to pay a little bit of a penny for it. The housing prices here, the median sold price as of last month was $452,000, which I actually feel like is a little bit lower than the average. Maybe I'm wrong here. But it definitely feels a little bit on the lower end. I feel like Niceville's keep creeping up a little bit. And I think a lot of that is because of the school system out there. Out of all of the areas here, Niceville is one that I hear the most about how great the schools are. There's a couple other areas that I'm starting to hear pretty good things about, Navarre, Santa Rosa Beach. But Niceville's kind of been the tried and true that just about everybody that's got a kid there says that they really enjoy it. And for the highlights, they're very similar to the vibes I just gave you. It's great schools and a safe, welcoming atmosphere. Now, the clients I reached out to for Niceville have lived in 2 of the main neighborhoods inside of Niceville, and so I figured they were a pretty good person to ask on what they felt like, and they've been out here like 6 or 7 years now at this point. And they said exactly what I thought they were going to say. They said it's quiet, very community-oriented in general, extremely friendly, and a great place to call home, which is why they've bought, lived in 2 different areas here in Niceville. Now we're going to move on to a city that I don't talk about as much on this channel as I probably should. A lot of the reason for that is because it's kind of up and coming, but I believe it's here now. And so we're going to be talking about this neighborhood or this city a heck of a lot more. The infrastructure is built out tremendously. And in fact, we like it so much. One of our main agents, you've seen her on this channel before if you're a longtime viewer, Miss AJ, she's actually moving up there right now. That is how good the infrastructure has been in this place. So let's talk about Freeport. I'd like to call Freeport the affordable gateway. I think that describes it great because you're getting a lot for your money out there. Like borderline Crestview prices, a little bit higher than that, but you're getting brand new, you're getting new infrastructure, you're getting new everything. In fact, there's so much great about Freeport. If it was closer to my office here in Fort Walton Beach, I would probably be moving there. I absolutely love the neighborhoods that they're building, from neighborhoods inside of neighborhoods to the things and the amenities inside of the neighborhoods themselves, like having Props Brewery and your own convenience stores and little shopping centers and a huge outdoor area for movies. And they're doing stuff there too. And not only that, they've got the huge sports complex that always has people out there. So before I give away all of the other secrets, let's talk about the overall vibe. I would call Freeport laid back, up and coming. I know I already said that, multiple times. And of course, affordable. All right, get this. Median house prices, $396,000. What's crazy about this is most of Freeport, particularly Hammock Bay area, is new construction. So a lot of that pricing is being driven from new construction. A good chunk of it is new construction. So $396,000, you're getting brand new construction and you're getting a lot of house for your buck out there as well, plus all of the amenities. If I had to give one big highlight to Freeport, it's going to be close to the beach without a high price tag. You're still about 20 to 30 minutes from the beach, depending on how deep into Freeport you are or deep into Hammock Bay. It could actually be even shorter than that. It can be about 12 minutes if you're on the kind of southern end right by the bridge. But you're not having to pay the price tag of some of our beach communities, as you're seeing throughout this video. So the clients that I reached out to for Freeport did not get back to me in time, so I'm just going to kind of give you my little snippet from what I can tell or what I think that they would have said living there in Hammock Bay. Freeport has a distinct advantage being just minutes away from 30A and Destin. And of course, making it an affordable option to those who want proximity to those areas without actually living in it is pretty good. They might not have said it as eloquently as that, but the main gist of it is there. All right, if we were to be in Freeport and take that south, we would head to Santa Rosa Beach, which is our next section. Santa Rosa Beach is nature meets luxury. I know that seems like an oxymoron. I know that seems a little bit off, but that is exactly what Santa Rosa Beach feels like. The main vibes in Santa Rosa Beach are upscale, picturesque, and a strong sense of community. Now, the median house prices here for where you're at, particularly in the North Santa Rosa Beach area, is relatively affordable. It's at $558,000 as a median sale price. So definitely more expensive than some of the cities we've already hit, but a lot less expensive for where you're at being that close to the beach and right off of Highway 98. The main highlights here in Santa Rosa Beach are luxury living, artisan markets, and amazing, amazing state parks. And I mean that too. There are so many different trails and things to go on, and walking trails, running trails, biking trails, driving your Jeep trails, and it just keeps going all over Santa Rosa Beach. As you're driving down 98, you're seeing all the wooded areas off to your right if you're headed east. And so much of that is state park with so many different scattered things to do with inside of it. So if you're a nature lover, but you want a little bit of that luxury when you get home, this is an outstanding place for you to live. A recent client that actually moved out there not too long ago actually found us from this YouTube channel. She said, and I'm quoting this here, it feels like she stepped into a postcard. A postcard. Like, how cool is that? That's Santa Rosa Beach for you. She also went on to say that she can't get enough of the natural beauty. She's one of those that really takes advantage of the state parks, but also likes going to the beach. And, we were kind of talking for a few minutes. She said, I love being able to go over there, check out some of the really cool boutique shops and stuff, hit the beach for 30 minutes to an hour, and then head home. And it's just like everything that she wanted. So I thought that was pretty awesome. Well, since we're talking about picturesque and beauty, let's move on to 30A. 30A is a whole area here of beach that a lot of people don't even know about unless you vacation down here. It's kind of like the ritzy Destin, if you will, the kind of fancier version of Destin. And there are so many towns. I want to say there's close to 18 or 19 of them. I could be completely wrong. I'll have to ask AJ about that. She runs our sister channel, Life in 30A. If you haven't subscribed to that one, go over there, check it out. She does all 30A. That's the main point. Occasionally, she kind of bumps out into Santa Rosa Beach, but for most of it, it is 30A. So she goes over the different personalities of each city. That's my favorite part about 30A, by the way, is as you're driving through, the personalities of each town changes. You can watch it. It's so crazy, especially when you drive into Watercolor. That's one of my favorite ones. Or Alice Beach, the entire vibe changes. The color scheme changes. The whole town is different. And the vibes of each individual city are different as well. So this one was a little bit difficult to pick out the vibes and everything else on, but let's try and give it a shot. When looking at all of the different towns and trying to come up with 3 big highlights for this area, the 3 that I came up with are community-oriented, artistic, and upscale. Now, the housing pricing here is going to be the highest out of anything we're going to talk about in this video. And we break it up here in our MLS because I'm a real estate professional. They break it up into East and West. And that's probably a good thing because the numbers are pretty staggeringly different, and they are definitely on the luxury side of everything. The median sale price on the east side, which is the most expensive, is currently sitting at $1.85 million. So $1,850,000 is the median home sale out there, while on the west side, it is $1.2 million. So if you are thinking about moving to the 30A area in general, although you can get under $1 million very easily, there's actually a good chunk of them that are under $1 million. Just note that the price tag is higher than most of the other cities. In fact, all of the other cities here along the Emerald Coast. Now, the big highlights here in 30A are small town feels, iconic architecture. I can't hit that one hard enough. The architecture in 30A is bar none. It is absolutely beautiful. And then lastly, walkable neighborhoods. It really feels like everything is just so walkable. Everything is just so friendly. And it has that small town feel with the beach right there in every single city. In fact, in some of them, you'll be walking outside of your house, your townhome, whatever it is, and seeing the beautiful Gulf of Mexico. And for this one, I actually didn't reach out to any of my past clients. I sort of spaced it, to be completely honest. Most of it was because I wasn't sure if I was going to throw 30A in here because it's so vibrant and so different with each of the communities. But I do have a little fun fact for you. If you guys have ever seen the movie The Truman Show, that was actually shot here on 30A in Seaside. So that picturesque white buildings and friendly neighborhoods, and like how the parking is on the streets and all of this, that's all real. Like, that's a real neighborhood. They didn't make that up in Hollywood. That is a real place. So if you need to Google Truman Show or something like that, or Google Seaside, Florida, or Seaside 30A, and you'll see it. It is gorgeous. And while you're at it, just look at some of the pictures of some of the other 30A communities, because it's insane. Watercolor, Alice Beach, those are 3 that I suggest you take a look at if you're just sitting there wanting to Google some stuff. As I mentioned before, check out our sister channel, Life on 30A with Miss AJ. That is kind of her territory. She handles all of our luxury for the Emerald Group, which is the real estate team here. So, if you want to get super detailed information, she's so much smarter at it than even I am at this point. And so she's got everything. She's got all the little tidbits of information. She can really help you figure out which neighborhood is best for you based on the vibe that you're looking for. All right, let's move into Panama City Beach, or as I like to dub it, the entertainer. Panama City Beach is exactly that. If you're wanting to go there for fun vibes and, kind of like Destin, but like almost like more touristy, but I don't know, it's like a different touristy. I feel like Destin touristy is like almost like more ritzy a little bit, whereas Panama City Beach is more reachable fun, right? It's a place that you go to have a good time. You want to go to a great beach, but you don't want to necessarily spend an arm and a leg. Panama City Beach can definitely be that, depending on where you're at. You can definitely spend an arm and a leg in Panama City Beach too, don't get me wrong. All right, so the overall vibe in Panama City Beach is fun, touristy, and always lively. It's the party version of Destin, right? Destin's got nightlife and things like that, but Panama City Beach definitely feels more like the party-centric city. Now, the median home price in Panama City Beach is actually pretty solid at $443,000. And the highlight is sort of a mix. I wanted to give a good idea of what Panama City Beach really is, no hold bar sort of thing, not holding back. And so world famous beaches, obviously, that's part of the highlight, and tons of activities for families and spring breakers alike. I wanted to put that in there because that is exactly how it feels. You can definitely enjoy this as a family, but just know that there is a party scene out there. So much so that at one point, I don't know if they're still doing it. I'd have to check. I don't think they are, or else I would have heard about it by now. But they actually had to shut down our beaches from alcohol over there in Panama City Beach because the parties were just too crazy. It was just getting too hectic. People were trashing the beaches. And then, of course, there was a lot of underage drinking. So if the beaches are still open during spring break for alcohol, a lot of times you'll see vehicles out there, large like trucks with cages, and they're basically big drunk tanks for all of the people that are too drunk and, of course, all the underage kids. And they're just mowing through there, grabbing a bunch, filling up the truck, leaving, coming back. That was always kind of the vibe of Panama City Beach. But don't let that deter you completely if that kind of lifestyle sounds fun from time to time, but you still want the family-oriented portion, because you can go right into Panama City, Maine, the kind of proper, as I would call it, and you'll still have access to all of that fun party-style life stuff, but also be able to go back home and enjoy good schools and be able to raise your family as necessary. All right, when talking to one of my past clients that moved out there, they noted the nightlife and attractions are pretty good, and there's a lot of rentals out there, like short-term rentals that produce a lot of vacation tourists, obviously, and a lot of times at the weekends feel almost like a mini vacation, but she did also mention that sometimes it felt like it was a little bit too much, where she didn't want to go out to the Panama City Beach area and just stay in, because she lives in, Panama City proper, that most of the time she doesn't go out there. And if she does, she generally waits until the tourists are away. So essentially what we all feel in any of these tourist towns along the Emerald Coast. All right, now we're going to take a complete wild 180-degree turn here and talk about Crestview, or as we're calling it, the affordable inland option. Crestview is exactly that. This is some of the best bang for your buck you're going to get. There are a few smaller towns like Defuniak and Pace and Milton, and even smaller ones outside of that like Jay and stuff like that, where you'll get even more bang for your buck. But as far as a big city center, Crestview is kind of the one that most people think about when they're thinking, hey, I want the most affordable option. I want the biggest house for the least amount of money. Then Crestview is definitely where it's at. It's going to come with its own drawbacks, like having to drive wherever you're going and not having as much infrastructure inside of the city. But for the amount of money that you're saving, you've got everything you need. So as long as you're not wanting anything too special all the time, then Crestview is an outstanding option. The overall vibe here in Crestview is small town charm for sure, budget friendly, and consistently growing. It's one of the cool things when I first moved here in 2005, 2006 timeframe. I can never remember the exact year that I moved down here. I'm going to have to look it up one day. But I remember driving through Crestview whenever I was looking at houses, trying to find something for me to buy, and it wasn't even built up yet. And it just seemed like there wasn't that much out there. And now every time I drive through there, I'm like, holy cow, like this thing is built up. Like they have everything you need. They have a Taco Bell for, and a Chick-fil-A now. They have a Chick-fil-A that has like two lanes, I think, and they're just cranking some chicken out. Like this Chick-fil-A does not mess around. So Crestview has definitely grown. Now check this out. This is the best part about it. Median home sale price in Crestview, $322,000. 322. And the cool thing with this is you're going to get similar properties for that same amount as you do in Navarre for the 400 some odd thousand price point out there. Slightly larger plots of land, slightly larger homes generally. A lot of them might come with what we call the Crestview curse, where one of either the front yard or the backyard's at an angle, because a lot of Crestview is on hills. It's actually the highest elevation in Florida. So that's like our mountains. I'm putting that in quotations for a reason because it's really not a mountain at all, but it's the closest thing we have. Now, when it comes to Crestview and what I'm calling the highlight for this video, it's a bit further inland, but offering a lower cost and a great sense of community. Now, listen, I reached out to lots of people in Crestview because we have a large portion, with me being prior military and several of my team members being prior military. It's very common that we get a lot of military folks out here. So we had a lot of people out in Crestview because you've got 7th Special Forces right there. You've got Duke Field right there. And then further south, you've got Eglin Air Force Base. And Crestview is the most affordable option that you would want if you're going to be working at any of those places. So I'm just going to kind of give a quick synopsis of what most people basically said. There were several comments about, hey, it sucks kind of that it's a little bit further from the beach, but we don't go that often anyway. So it's kind of nice because you get the great affordability and charm. Several people mentioned charm, which is not something I would have guessed that they would have said about Crestview. I can kind of see it. It's got kind of like an outdoorsy feel to it too. But it was just funny that 2 people mentioned charm out of the 5 or 6 that I reached out to. And several people mentioned it was a great first place or great place for first-time homebuyers as well as families in general. Again, something I wasn't expecting to hear about the families portion, but they do have solid schools and they do have solid communities. There are some sketchy parts of town, just like any city has or most cities. But all in all, great place to live for an affordable price. All right, now we're going to head back southwest over into Gulf Breeze. I'm going to call Gulf Breeze the coastal suburb. I almost didn't put this one in here because Gulf Breeze is very similar to Navarre, but there are enough nuances and enough of a difference that I did want to make sure that I went through them. So the overall vibe here in Gulf Breeze is family friendly, picturesque, and close to Pensacola, which I know is kind of a weird thing to put in a vibe, but I think it's super important because Pensacola is its own beast, its own thing. And yes, we will be talking about Pensacola in the next city. Now, this is where it differs from Navarre. Remember that 400 some odd thousand price point in Navarre? Well, here in Gulf Breeze, the median sale price was $510,000. So pricing goes up a little bit, and it does have more of a suburban feel than Navarre can, mainly because of how Navarre's main neighborhood is split up, not having the sidewalks everywhere, things like that. It doesn't quite have that feel to it, whereas Gulf Breeze definitely does. And then the big highlight here in Gulf Breeze is top-rated schools. Schools are so good, and very close to a bigger city. Pensacola is the largest city that we have here in our scope that I touch here on my team at the Emerald Group, but it's very close to it. So you get all of the great amenities of being right outside of Pensacola. In fact, a lot of people call Gulf Breeze like a Pensacola suburb. Now, when it comes to Gulf Breeze, it was a last-minute add-on, so I didn't have any clients to reach out to, or I didn't reach out to anybody, so we'll just move on past that portion and get into Pensacola. All right, Pensacola, the big city by the beach. Pensacola offers so much. You've got very, very affordable housing. This is this is the only city in our area, pending Pace and Milton, some of the smaller ones I did not mention in our video, that you can still get properties underneath $100,000. Now, they're not going to be pretty. They're definitely not going to be livable, but it still happens. And we haven't seen that in Fort Walton, for instance, in almost a decade, maybe 8 years, 6 years, something like that. So they've got a very wide range. You've got very, very affordable. You've got downright cheap, really, right? Those are when I'm saying cheap, I mean you need to put money into them to make it livable. Then you've got very affordable all the way up to luxury. So Pensacola offers quite a bit. The main vibe in Pensacola is lively, historic, and cultural. So a big portion of it is history. This is a city where you can find homes that were built in the 1700s, still erect today. Like it's really crazy. I remember the first time that I ever sold one with an 18 in front of it, right? I'm not used to that because everywhere else in our scope, all the houses are 19 something. And I sold an 1890s home, completely different layout than anything I've ever seen before, which is so weird because I've sold well over 1,000 homes before in my career. And the uniqueness of an 1800s home is so different. The way it's all laid out, super, super interesting. But it does have that. So that cultural and that historic feel to it, Pensacola's nailing that. Now, remember earlier I said Crestview had the most bang for your buck? It's not entirely true. Technically, Pensacola's got it beat. The median home sale price out here was just shy of $290,000. One of the few places you can still get a pretty phenomenal house for $200K. You can still definitely get that in Crestview as well. But Pensacola is going to have a lot more options. It's a much bigger city. When it comes to highlights of Pensacola, I've got three main ones. Larger city with a historic charm, which it definitely does very well. A very exciting downtown area, like just from nightlife and also the Blue Wahoos, which is baseball, the Ice Flyers, which is hockey, which by the way, hockey, went to my first game here at the Ice Flyers game. Those pucks move. I did not, like you watch it on TV, you have no idea how quick they're moving. It is insane how fast those guys are moving, but it's really fun, really great, an exciting downtown area. And then, of course, you've got direct beach access right there in the city. You've got lots of waterfront restaurants. It's just a really cool vibe in general. Now, when it comes to our past clients, the individual I reached out to technically lives in Pensacola Beach, which is a different vibe and feel than Pensacola, but I loved his answer and what he said. He said he loved Pensacola for its balance of city amenities and small town beach feeling charm. And they're calling their house their forever home. They were just kind of like thanking me again for everything, which is super cool. They bought right on the water out there. Very gorgeous property. Holy cow. Like super, super beautiful. And they've got access to all the stuff on the beach, but then they've got very quick access to Pensacola as well. When I was talking to him a little bit further, we were also talking about some of the construction and stuff because they just changed the bridge. They just redid the bridge. Which now that it's done, it's amazing. But in the process of it, was kind of a pain in the butt. And so we're just kind of, talking about that. He was like, I avoided the city for about a year while they were doing that. I still went in from time to time, but I tried not to go in there just willy-nilly. But that is Pensacola in a nutshell in general. They're like historic charm, but still having so much to do. Like Palafox in general, which is like their downtown area. There's just so much. It's so much. Like I can't even begin to describe it, to the point where like my closest friends actually went out there to get married because it's just that cool in that little area. And then with that historic charm to it, it just brings like this whole vibe to it. I absolutely love Pensacola. And we don't talk about it enough on this channel because it kind of deserves its own channel. And to be honest, I'm waiting for somebody that wants to specialize in that area to step up and say, hey, let's start a channel out there. And when we do, we will let you guys know. Really appreciate you guys all watching. I know this was a longer one, but I hope it was super helpful to give you an idea on where to go. If you've been watching our videos and you're like, all of these cities sound great, I'm not sure. I really hope this helps you guys decide on kind of an angle, or at least between a couple of cities. If you are ready to take the leap and give us a call. If you're within a year is generally when I suggest people start reaching out to us so you can start building a relationship and seeing what the pricing is like in different neighborhoods. We can start talking to you, but at the very least 6 months, give us a call. All of our contact information is on the screen. So if you want to email, you can do that too. And then of course, if you guys like seeing some of the behind the scenes stuff, or you want to see like things to do, we stopped doing that on this channel. It was very good for views, but it wasn't really helpful to the people that wanted to move here. Because like, who needs to know where the best taco places are when you're trying to figure out where your whole family is going to move to? And moving is already stressful enough. We don't care about the best hot dogs and tacos in town. We do some of that stuff on our social media. So we'll throw our social media on here. And there's also links down below. So you can go to our Facebook, Instagram, click it. You'll see all of our stuff and you can be informed on some of the extra stuff. It's really helpful, or at least some of our folks are telling us it's helpful. So anyway, I will stop rambling and I will see you guys next week on Tuesday at 4 p.m. Central. See ya.